Do you want a pet reptile? Do you know what to do when bringing home a new pet reptile? How do you fit another reptile in your reptile room? Does your partner / roommate / legal guardian know you'll be bringing home this pet reptile? Well, I'll answer all your questions and more coming up. Except for that last one. Because if your significant other doesn't help support your reptile obsession, why bother? With us stuck in the middle of winter and spring on the way, there's actually another season that's nearly upon us, and that's Reptile Expo season. Ah, Reptile Expos, where you can see a cute little baby crested gecko and a monitor lizard that is most likely wild caught, will eat you out of house and home and grow to be 7 feet at the same table. So what do you do when you bring home a new cold-blooded companion? Here are 5 tips I have for you to make that leopard gecko, corn snake, ball python, or Komodo dragons transition into your care easier. Tip number 1. Research. Please, for the love of reptiles, research. Read as much as you can. Read online care sheets, watch YouTube care videos, try and learn as much as you possibly can about this animal before you bring it home.
Here, educate yourself.
And you want to go to multiple sources because you might hear some conflicting things, and this will give you a better, more well-rounded image of what you're going to be dealing with, and no one knows all the answers. Another thing you're going to want to do is make sure you find a good reptile vet in your area for you to take your critter to, because at some point you're probably going to have to take this animal to the vet, and you don't want to wait till the last minute when something's critically wrong with your reptile to scramble to find a vet that knows how to take care of it, because dog and cat vets don't know reptiles. Most exotic vets, take it from me, don't know reptiles. Treating a hedgehog or a parrot is not the same as treating a reptile. Their body layout is completely different. Their immune systems are completely different. You can't use the same medication. You can't use the same dosages. You can't do a lot of what you can with most other animals with reptiles. Luckily, I have an amazing reptile vet now that is specifically trained on reptiles that I can trust all of my animals to. So you're going to want to line something up before you bring an animal home. Tip number 2, prepare your animal setup. You want to get your animals home completely in order before you bring it home. Reptiles are kind of sort of in a way like fish in regards that once you get the setup 100% and once the animals are in it and thriving, it more just becomes about maintenance. So like with fish, you're maintaining water levels and stuff, but with reptiles, you're making sure the heat lamp and the basking temperature stay consistent, that you're giving them the nutritional supplements they need on the regular basis that they need it, things like that. Another thing, a few days before you bring the animal home, you're going to play around with the basking temperatures and the heat lamps. Make sure the basking temp is at the temperature it's supposed to be. You want to play around with that before you put the animal in, because if you put the leopard gecko in and all of a sudden your bulb is 20, 30 degrees hotter than it's supposed to be, you're in trouble. You have to panic and get a new one. You also want to test the humidity and how well your enclosure holds humidity. So a couple of days before you bring the animal home, mist the enclosure and mist it every day. Kind of get a bead on how quickly humidity drops, how it stays consistent. If you need to put coverings on the top to kind of keep the humidity in more, if you need to open it up to allow more airflow, you want to get all that situated before you put the animal in. Now this one's more for snakes, but you want to make sure the lid on your enclosure is secure. So get clamps, get something to weigh it down with if you need to, because with bearded dragons and leopard geckos and tortoises, they're never going to be able to get up there to kind of test the lid and get out. But a snake, you put a snake in there, snake's going to start testing the environment. You're just going to look for weak spots that it can get out of. So you want to make sure it can't find any, because that is a whole different thing trying to find a snake in a house. Tip number 3 is take what I just said and leave it alone for a while, because you need to quarantine, especially if you have other reptiles. What's the point of making a nice, gorgeous setup with bioactive substrate and a nice custom background if you bring home a snake that has mites and you need to destroy it all anyways? Quarantining helps you identify things like parasites, like snake mites. It helps you identify if they're pooping regularly, if it's the right healthy kind of poop, or if they're pooping at all. It just helps prevent the spread of things to your other reptiles. So this is a rosy boa that I just took in from a surrender case. This is kind of what I mean with a quarantine bare bones setup when you bring a new animal home and you have as many other animals as I do. It's just a bare bones tank, paper towel on the bottom, or you could use newspaper. Easy to clean, easy to find mites or things like that on, easy to find poop. Give them a couple of cardboard hides to hide in so they don't feel exposed, and again, they're also easily replaced. Nice, easy water bowl that they can't flip and that it's easy to clean out. I would quarantine for at least a month, make sure the animal's eating properly, make sure it's pooping regularly, make sure all the signs are good, and then I say after 30 or so days, you'd probably be good to put it into its normal enclosure. So I had to learn this lesson the hard way, because when I brought Roku home, my Centralian carpet python years ago, when I first brought him home, he actually had mites on him from the vendor that I got him at the expo, and I didn't notice. So I put him right in his tank when I got home, and that tank was on a bunch of shelving with a bunch of other tanks, and that entire rack ended up getting mites. And snake mites are not a fun thing to get rid of. I'll do a separate video again about them at some point. Tip 4, don't try to feed your animal immediately. Now, when you bring an animal home, they're gonna need a little bit to settle in. Sometimes it could take a long time. It also depends on the animal. I've had bearded dragons eat the day I brought them home, and I've had monitor lizards and crested geckos not eat for a couple weeks, nearly a month before they felt comfortable eating. Now with snakes, it's not as time pressing if they're not eating right away, because snakes can go so much longer without food than most other reptiles. So if you have a snake that's not eating for a month or two after you bring it home, that's not necessarily something to panic about. Just keep a close eye on it, and especially with ball pythons, they're kind of known for being finicky eaters and can get stressed really easily. So when you bring your snake home, give it like a week or so, and then try to feed it. And pick a day, pick like Wednesday. So if you try to feed it on Wednesday and it doesn't eat, don't freak out and try to feed it Thursday, Friday, Saturday. You're just gonna waste feeders. If he doesn't eat that Wednesday, or if he does, great. Wait till the following Wednesday. Try to feed him again. If he eats again, that's good. If not, just try and do every Wednesday or something like that. Pick a day of the week and don't try to like overfeed them. Now, snakes might get stressed out by your presence, so I'm not gonna talk about feeding live, but what you might have to do is take a frozen thawed mouse and put it on a little paper plate and leave it in the tank overnight so that they will eat without you there. And if you come back the next day and it's gone, which usually is what happens with me, that's great. If they'll strike it right off the tongs immediately, that's also great. But again, you want to wait a little bit and don't freak out if they don't eat right away. Now, lizards are a little bit different. With lizards, you have such varied diets depending on what species you're dealing with. So, I mean, you're a mastix, you're just putting a salad in. But for beardies and savanna monitors and stuff that you need to feed bugs, what I would do is I'd get a little ceramic dish that's inescapable for bugs, put some mealworms in there, put that in the cage, leave for a couple hours, see if the motion or the smell will attract him down to eat without you there, because he might view you as a potential predator, and see if they'll eat that way. Now, 9 out of 10 times, I've never had problems getting bearded dragons, leopard geckos, corn snakes to eat. I mean, if you're dealing with more advanced species like monitor lizards or green tree pythons or something like that, it might take a little bit more finagling and a little bit more time on your part. But if you have those animals, you are probably not needing this video. And then tip number 5, and this is a hard one for new pet parents, but you want to leave your animal alone. You don't want to handle them right away. I know when everyone brings a new animal home, they want to take pictures with them, they want to hold them, they want to get them used to you, you want to start the socialization process, get them friendly. But like I said, if you get an animal home from an expo, even a pet store, they probably have been jostled around homes, they've probably been kept in little containers for a while. So you want to get them in, get them settled into their enclosure, get them eating and healthy and everything before you start trying to mess with them. I wouldn't start handling really for a few weeks after you bring them home. I mean, basically kind of like the quarantine process, get them in their quarantine tank, make sure they're eating, gaining weight, pooping, being healthy, displaying normal, usual behaviors. With snakes, I use the 3 rule, where I make sure they've eaten 3 meals before I start trying to handle them. And that way I know they're getting bigger, they have an appetite, they're gaining some weight. If your reptile's eaten quite a few times, it's coming out to bask, it's shedding, it's drinking, it's exploring its new home, doing a lot of healthy, normal behaviors, then your setup is most likely good, and you're probably good to start trying to handle it. Now, I'll be doing a separate video about how to handle animals for the first time in the future. So that was 5 tips on what to do when you bring home a new pet reptile. Thank you folks for tuning in. If you found the video helpful, please hit the like button. I'd be very grateful. And if you want to watch more videos that we have coming out about all of our different animals and what to do with them and things like that, make sure you subscribe. Comment down below if there's a certain reptile you're looking to add to your collection this year, and I'll catch you later. Except for that last one, because tortoises before broaduses. No. because geckos before girlfriends, because boas before boyfriends, because reptiles before relationships. Except for that last one, because if he doesn't like reptiles, ladies, dump him. You don't need no man.